What I've been advocating for the past 15 years in my research is to change from food as fuel to food as pleasure, because pleasure can be the ally of healthy eating. So I think food marketing can be a force for good. It can actually help align business, health, and also the pleasure of eating. But to do that requires really a change of paradigm. I think right now the food industry behaves as if they are in the energy business, like oil and gas, where the business model is I'm going to grow by selling more calories, so more energy to more people, more often for more money. And what I've been advocating for the past 15 years in my research is to change from food as fuel to food as pleasure, because pleasure can be the ally of healthy eating. Epicurean nudging comes back from the teaching of Epicurus, the Greek philosopher, who in 300 BC said, "The wise person does not choose the largest amount of food, but the most pleasing." And the whole idea is that to encourage people to eat better, we should not just focus on nutrition and talk about antioxidants and calories. We should talk about pleasure, because pleasure is what really drives food choices. And pleasure can be the ally of healthy eating, because if you actually put pleasure at the center, you realize that you don't need a supersized portion, because pleasure in food doesn't increase with quantity, but with quality, with savoring. And so by focusing on pleasure, my research at INSEAD has shown that we can get children and adults to actually choose a more reasonable portion. Not a small one, but to go back to what used to be a normal portion not so long ago. I agree that reformulation has a role to play. Certainly, if we can make the food healthier, we should do it. But that's what we're already doing, and it's probably not going to be enough. Number one, because if you remove salt from a soup, let's say, and people add more salt themselves, you haven't really made any progress. Number two, because people like the food the way it is. They like to eat the same food their grandmother used to make. And so there's a big resistance to some of the innovation. And that's why I think in addition to trying to remove salt, sugar, and fats and improving the food, we need to improve how people eat, not just what they eat. Because again, we can, I believe, find win-win situations where consumers will be happier to spend more for a more reasonable portion of food, because they will focus on really what the pleasure they can get on this food, as opposed to what it is now, which is a lot of mindless eating, big quantity, cheap food that doesn't actually deliver that much pleasure. So I think there are many ways that even fast food restaurants or quick service restaurants can do it. And I will finish by actually saying that I realized that focusing on Epicurean aspects, so the sensory experience, the origin of the food, in my research, I found this allowed restaurants to charge a higher prices, a higher margin, especially if they were entry-level restaurants. Because in the high-end restaurants, they already do it. You don't need to change the menu description. But in like regular mom-and-pop restaurants, if you focus on the pleasure and the sensory experience, as opposed to just quantity and value for money, you'll be able to get customers to pay more for more reasonable portions of food and to be more satisfied with their meal experience.